in the word, my body's always third. Yeah, it's the Republic of Intellect, just to be a part of this McCall and mindset. And a continuous community, work for and by each other, rising up in unity. But this ain't nothing that ain't new to me, it's next to me. Definitely is the best to me, and yeah, it's definitely. The death on my old ways, breaking off the chains of my soul to the bright rays. This is nothing that can be replaced. No, I didn't come to play a chance, I'm here to stay. No, I will never ever fade. It's the end of soldier, I'm in his community. Soldier, I'm in soldier. Putting in the word, my body's always third. Soldier, I'm in soldier. Putting in the word, my body's always third. I am a soldier for the army of the Lord, moving forward by the mighty omnivores. This serious business we got for our community. This serious business we living for this unity. The bright race raising up the brighter legacy. Bright power ushering in supremacy. We're spoken now must be held as future prophecy. By the power of army we will hold the power seat. We tuned into Mentellect and yes we heard the call. We raised up the name of Amen so the beast can fall. We move as one on one path. Yes we are the Lord's. Our minds focus steady motion towards the fourth. Soldier, I'm in soldier. Putting in the word, my body's always third. Soldier, I'm in soldier. Putting in the word, my body's always third. By the power of Amen, we embody the Amen beings, moving in the future with a mind of clarity as alignment. Soldiers lay down law and order, building a foundation with the bright four corners. Masterminds is thinking higher, souls appear fire. We only here to manifest the true mind power. Channel mind is a deadly weapon, thoughts of transmission, equal fully loaded ammunition. Soldier, I'm in soldier, I'm in soldier. I'm in soldier. Soldier, I'm in soldier. Put in the word, my body's always third. Soldier, I'm in soldier. Put in the word, my body's always third.
All right. Better late than never. It's Mother's Day. Getting things together. We're going to do a little high and mighty. I ain't going to be on here too long. I just want to give a shout out to my lovely wives, Contessa and Amandea, on Mother's Day. A shout out to my mother, Ms. Benetta, on Mother's Day, and all the mothers out there on Mother's Day, even though every day is your day, just like, I don't really, deal with the whole thing. Because the B says it's Mother's Day and whatever. It's Mother's Day every day with me, Father's Day every day with me, Children's Day every day with me. We take care of our own. Before we start off, in the name of Amen, the Supreme, the All-Powerful, the one and only true Lord, and Amen we trust, and Amen we thank, and in Amen we continue forward forever. Good evening, I'm your host, the intellectual Newton Menkares, and this is Mentellect. I say Mentellect. High and Mighty Talks. I'm always saying Mentellect Radio. You got used to saying it. High and Mighty Talks with me, Newton Menkares. But Mentellect Radio will come tonight. I'm not going to do AR Radio tonight. I'm going to be doing Mentellect Radio. I'm going to do a special, installment of Mentellect Radio tonight. But let's get on to that. I want to talk about things that have been going on somewhat in the news. And we're going to have something else coming up soon. The High and Mighty Talks channel will be coming up soon. That's going to just be, thoughts. High and Mighty Thoughts. I'm sorry. High and Mighty Thoughts. Yeah, you see me repping the New York City shirt. I'm in New York City, of course. White is a bitch to keep clean, but, I'm trying to get no ashes on my New York shirt. That's one of these iconic New York City shirts. I always like that. I like to fit on me and everything. So, I'm repping that today. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. My lovely wife bringing me some coffee. Thank you, dear. She didn't want to get on camera. All right. Thank you. Right. I could also use a big glass of water. Someone, big glass of water. All right. Huh? It's all right. Could be it's okay. I'm going to be touching on a few different things. The main topic is mating for survival, coming together for survival, mating for survival, and continuing for the All right. We're back. All right. We're back. Let my TV catch up. We're back. All right. We're back. So we're starting out talking about mating for evolution and survival. In 2023, I know a lot of women are trying to worry about getting together with somebody who you like, somebody who, tickles your fancy, whatever you refer to it as, someone who you think you can be with for the long term because of emotional connection. And that's fine. But see, the thing with emotional connections, just like all connections, they tend to wear thin. Anything that is based in the construct of something coming together can eventually come apart. However, there has to be something that bonds you more than just your emotions for somebody, your likes and dislikes. Something has to bond you, something more than that. And that is children. Children of the future. I'm not saying have children with somebody who you can't get along with. I'm not saying have children with someone who you don't find attractive. I mean, the last thing you want to do is live the rest of your life with a bunch of tricked out looking kids, or with somebody who's a complete a-hole. I mean, you don't want to have to do that. So what the best thing to do, you need to really go back to courting again, where men and women get to know each other, really get to know each other before they engage. There should be rules of engagement. There should be open rules of engagement when men and women come together. Things that are laid out on the table. When men ask women their sign, and I know a lot of times the astrological thing, I know a lot of times the astrological thing is taken lightly, but in a way it's not. It's good to have somebody who you're compatible with. I know that astrology, it is referred to as astrological signs, and there's some logic in what's being said in the astrological connection between people. It is something to that. I bear witness to that. And, you tend to get along better with people who are within your sign. And if not, you tend to negotiate. See, open-mindedness and all kinds of things when it comes to engagement should be embarked upon, because the goal should always be the future, which is children and family. Women, usually, y'all usually have the foresight, because women will say, I'm seeing a lot of women on YouTube saying, I want to be married and I want children. And, a lot of them are in their 30s, mid 30s, going into their late 30s, going into their 40s. And the clock is ticking away for them. I know a lot of y'all look at this situation with the brat, which I'm going to touch on that too. And I'm going to touch on the brat situation too. It's going to be a bonus thing I'm going to touch on with this brat situation. I know a lot of them. Now, a lot is being shown of women in their 40s and better having children. And in certain situations that can be done. But is it to be done? Your best time to have children is from the time, your 20s to 40. From 20 to 40 is the best time to have children. You know, I mean, of course, you can start earlier, but mentally, you're not mature. Around 20, you should be mature enough to, you know, get with a man who's older than you, someone who's more mature than you, someone who you can, you know, someone that you can, you know, connect with. Because women, I said this before, women and men, you know, at the same age, the women are going to always tend to be ahead of the men. Like a 20-year-old girl and a 20-year-old boy is two so totally different demeanors. The 20-year-old is usually more advanced in her way of thinking than the 20-year-old boy. The girl is more advanced. So she needs a man who's lived longer than she has, at least 10 or 15 years or more. Not probably over 20, but around that time, around 10 to 15 years or better would be good. Not somebody with a drastic difference, but somebody be good, maybe not over 25, 26 years. And in that, it grows the woman to maturity, because the goal is to have a father who can, you know, properly instill the things in children that they need, properly instill the power of manhood within a son. That's grossly missing within young generation of males today, who don't make it into becoming men because they don't have fathers in their lives to guide them. Women cannot raise men. Women cannot raise men. Women cannot raise boys. They cannot. Only a man could raise a man. Only a man can raise a man. And I'm going to say this also, only a woman can raise a woman. A father is no good raising a daughter by his own, same way a mother's no good with raising a daughter up on her own. I mean, you can do it ultimately, but is it to be done? No, it is not. It is not to be done. You know? So, that's you? All right. It is not to be done. Somebody said put my phone on, but theirs ain't.
It's not my laptop.
Yeah. So, rules of engagement, talking extensively. Really intensify your talks with men. You women, y'all don't talk enough to men. You get with guys because they're cute, they handsome, and a lot of times y'all pray that they don't say too much, because you're thinking that you want to get with them physically, and you should be trying to get with them mentally long before you get with them physically. Meaning that you need to know what their intentions are, what they're going to do, what are they doing in the world, what are all their situations before you decide to engage with them in having children and spending your life together. See, a lot of y'all don't get to know the man mentally. You try to get to know him physically, and you let him push that on you. Because a lot of times, you got a lot of these males out here, they know they don't have nothing to offer you mentally, so they try to have push the physical. And a lot of you females, y'all ain't got nothing to offer nobody mentally as well. I'm going to just put it on both of y'all. So a lot of y'all just trying to push the physical thing forward. And from that comes children. From that comes misunderstandings, disappointments, you know, things that need to be already ironed out before you go on that path. Very, very deep introspection, very, very deep conversations about who the both of you are, you know, in depth. You know, you get to see all the things in a person that you need to see in order to move forward, because again, this is your life. You don't get a second shot at this. When you have a baby with someone, that's 18 to 20 years of your life that you're committing. It could be either like a beautiful vacation or a jail sentence. When I say a beautiful vacation, having beautiful children, having understanding spouse, someone who you can communicate with, connect with, because y'all became mentally connected before you became physically connected. There's a rules of engagement. There's a connection. There's an understanding that is there. But way before there's a physical connection. Because nobody wants to waste anybody's time going forward. You don't need to do that. You don't need to fix things along the way. Those things need to be already ironed out before you engage. So, a lot of deep introspective conversation needs to be done. A lot of the brain needs to be picked if you're going to be with a potential mate going forward. And keep in mind, women will say that they want children because, again, unlike men, women are on a biological clock. Men, as long as you're healthy, as long as you're together, you can have children until you are dead. Men could have children all the way up to their old age. They can keep having children. Is it to be done? Of course not, because men want to be able to see their children grow up. I said, me, I'm 52 years old. I'm going to be 53 years old. And I said I wanted to stop having children at 55. And my goal was 6 children. So I'm well on my way. Let's just say it that way. I ain't going to go into it. I'm well on my way. Anyway, so survival, like, again, I think about children as survival and, and the continuation of the bloodline. You see, because women always ask for that first. They go, I want to have children, such and such. They're already thinking children already. So if you're already thinking children already, you really need to think who you're making them with. All right. Next. Behind the pathological hatred of black people in this society. What is behind the pathological hatred? Have y'all ever sat and said to yourself, why are black people hated so much? Why are black people the most hated people in this society? Why are black people all over, wherever you go, why are black people the most hated people? And it's always the same people. It's always a segment of Caucasians, a segment of Asians, a segment of East Indians, a segment of even so-called black people, Africans, all that. Why are so-called black people hated so much? Answer, the real answer, because it's a jealousy. It's a envious jealousy, a pathological and envious jealousy of the indigenous people here in this country. I'm just speaking for in America, but black people, for the so-called black people, for the most part, are pretty much indigenous all over the planet. Wherever black people are, wherever you see them at, 9 times out of 10, they are the indigenous population. So when you have people who migrate into those societies, into those places, and they look vastly different, from the people that's coming in, they have this rich tone, this rich skin, this rich copper toned skin, this woolly textured curly hair, basically a bunch of beautiful people. Bronze people, so-called black people, are beautiful people. We're the most beautiful people on the planet, bar none. I'm going to just keep it real. Anybody who, and like I said, you got attractive people in every race. You got nice people in every race, but per person, as you say, capita, whatever you say, so-called black people, bronze, copper-colored people, we are a beautiful people. But see, you know how people try to ugly us up? The Caucasian races here, this society tried to ugly us up. You know how they tried to ugly us up? By calling us black people. That was their way of trying to ugly us up. Because prior to that time, they would refer to us as the copper-colored people. You see how beautiful that sounds? The bronze or the copper-colored people. The sepia, which is really the color of our skin. Our skin is not black. But you have the beautiful bronze, copper tone, copper-colored people, the richest natural tans on the planet, carbon-based people, woolly, curly type hair, not fur like animals, like the humans. We're the most beautiful people on the planet. I know I feel beautiful. I feel beautiful. I've been told I am a beautiful man. Shout out to you women who think I'm a beautiful man. Not you dudes. Not you. But the women, shout out to the women who think I'm a beautiful man. Thank you. And we all are beautiful people. We come in different shades and complexions. And so when you see people who lack that beauty, who lack that beautiful complexion and tone, who sit up here and call us black people when it's clear that we're not black, our skin is not black. We are those copper-colored people that's spoken of as the real Americans in the 1828 Merriam-Webster Dictionary, because we went from copper-colored to Negro to black. And this was the way that these racist Caucasians had of uglying our people up by calling us black people. And then, of course, they had to make up this weird-looking, these weird-looking images of us on their products they would sell, these real jet black monster looking people with red lips who they said look like us. And I'm like, who the hell that's supposed to be? I'm like, in your sick, degenerate, path illogical. I say path illogical way of thinking. This is what you try to make us believe we look like. Thus, having to force the idea of blackness on our people. See, blackness was a mental program that was put on our people. And it has worked so well that our people actually think that they're a race of black people. They actually think there's a so-called black race. They don't understand that that was meant to be an insult by racist Caucasians who run the society, who wanted to classify us, the indigenous people, the real indigenous Americans, who wanted to classify us as undesirable people, thus the term black people. And for much as I say this, you still got a lot of so-called quote-unquote black people who don't get this through their head. I personally hate the term. When I did the last cast, I personally hate the phrase black. I hate the phrase African American. I hate the phrase Negro. Why? Because they do not apply to us. Our skin is not black. We are the American Indians. We are the American indigenous Indians, the real American Indians. In fact, I tell all my people, I tell so-called black people whose family, go back towards slavery and going back to slavery, people of the West Indies and people whose families been here going back past slavery, that you should always put on the census American Indian. Don't put African American, because number one, we're not from Africa. That's a lie. We didn't come over on no damn slave ships. We was always here, and we had land in this country. We had all the land for the most part in North America before the Caucasians came and took our land from us. That was the Great Indian Removal Act. When he was talking about removing Indians, they was talking about removing us. It was not talking about removing no Mongoloids, because they didn't even live on no land. But I talked about that in my older cast. I'm not going to get off into that. But the thing is, they call us this they had this pathological hate for us, so they called us black people, right, as an insult. And it made us look like a bunch of damn creatures with red lips and black face, to where y'all start thinking you look like that when you see these Caucasians, these racist Caucasians putting those images up trying to say that's how we look. Y'all actually take offense to this, and that blows my mind. You actually take offense at blackface. I don't understand why you take offense at blackface. That don't look like y'all. That's just the racist Caucasians trying to make up some stupid image that don't even look like us. That don't even look like us. That's like if I created some pasty face a pasty face person with damn black lips and put some dog hair on my head, some straight dog fur on my head, blonde or black dog fur on my head, and said I was a white boy. They'd be offended at that, because that's not really how they look. But the dog fur, that's correct. But if I went too far with the pasty face, they'd be like, well, we don't look like that. That's an insult. Well, we don't look like black people. We look like who we are, those bronze, copper tone people. And they couldn't even really call us brown people, because our skin is not brown. I told you the brown people are your Mexicans and all them. They brown, and the Arabs, those are brown people. We are the copper colored people, you see. And we were already here. But like I said, you have a pathological hatred for people who you really secretly revere as better than you. You have to tell yourself in your mind that these people are lesser than you to make you feel better about yourself. That's all jealousy. Jealousy is a very strong emotion in this three-dimensional space of time. Jealousy is heavy. It is the most heaviest emotion that a lot of people indulge in within this three-dimensional space, unfortunately. And because of that, it puts a whole group of people on the outskirts. You see how law in the society is misapplied to our people, where the goal is to lock up the indigenous copper-colored people who are falsely being called black, lock them up in jail, frame them, redline them, just basically use any type of leverage you got against them. Again, is a pathological hatred for beautiful people. You know what I say? A lot of these racist Caucasians they got ugly girl syndrome. A lot of you white racist Caucasians, the ones of you who racist, this goes out to you. You got ugly girl syndrome. You got ugly girl syndrome. What do I mean by ugly girl syndrome? What I mean is you the ugly girl who hate the pretty girl. the black people, the so-called black, the bronze, but they represent the pretty girl, and y'all represent the ugly ones, and you hate the pretty people. You see, you hate the pretty people. You hate the fact that they do look better than you, so you have to go out of your way to tell them how ugly they are. Notice, we never look at all the names that just show you how pathological these people's hate is. So look at all the names they have to make up for our people. Names that don't even apply. They'll say we look like monkeys, which we don't. We don't got straight hair like a monkey. We don't got pale skin up under the fur like a monkey, and we don't have thin lips. But they'll say we look like monkeys. That sounds more like you describing a Caucasian or an Asian. That sounds more like what you're describing if you're going to talk about who looks like a monkey. Look who all the people that play monkeys in the Planet of the Apes movies. Is that black people playing monkeys or is it white people? Ask yourself that question. Who plays all the monkeys in the Planet of the Apes movies? It's not us. It's y'all. I mean, real talk. But you try to put your pathological hate on us. When Darwin drew the evolutionary chart, did he show monkeys going to monkeys evolving into black people, or did he show monkeys evolving into white people at the end of that path that evolutionary chart? He showed the monkey evolving into a man. So that's saying your own scientist Charles Darwin was saying you Caucasians come from monkeys. That's what he was saying. I'm not being racist now, but your pathological hatred gets you to ignore that which is factual. That yes, y'all have hair like animals. Yes, you have skin like animals and lips and smell like animals, because humans are animals. I said black people are really not a part of the human race. They're not. But in your pathological hatred for the bronze, copper colored Americans, the real Americans, the indigenous American Indians that y'all claim died off, again, that is hatred within itself, because y'all sitting up here talking about the American Indians were killed off or that they were destroyed or wiped out. That's not true. You're looking at one sitting right here in front of you. Matter of fact, all you so-called black people here who would go back past slavery, you all American Indians. You're not African Americans, you're American Indians. The hatred for the American Indian is strong, but there's a reverence here, because you notice the so-called white man never shows the American Indians who he calls Native Americans. Now, that two different things. American Indian, Native American, two different things. But you notice he never shows the American Indians. He never shows the depiction of the American Indians as being cowards. He always shows them as warriors ready to fight. That's how he always shows them, right? Now, he promotes black people as cowards. He promotes black people as cowards who don't fight back, who let people just abuse them and do this, that, and the third. That's how they promote black people to be. You know, in those old black and white movies, they always show black people all shaking the skin. They went out of their way to degrade us. Now, I say this again. This proves to you that we are indigenous to this land and that we are a race only unto ourselves, which is the next point I'm about to get into. All right. We are, people have this pathological hate for us because we are a supreme people. Again, you don't hate down, you hate up. If we really were ignorant, stupid, brutish, dumb, all these things they say, criminal behavior, you wouldn't have white people moving around us if we was that way. You wouldn't have Caucasians coming into our neighborhoods, gentrifying our neighborhoods if they thought we were so dangerous and we steal and we hurt people and we violent. That's more likely to happen in a white neighborhood, because I told you before, when they come into our neighborhood, it's everyone's neighborhood. It's a free place. When you come in their neighborhood, it's nigga, get out of my neighborhood. Now, who's the violent people? Who are the violent people? Who run the organized crime? Who does all? Again, this is not an indictment against all Caucasian people, because all Caucasian people, it's just a segment of people, and that segment of people need to have a magnifying glass on them, because they always seem to be the problem in the world in which people are trying to just live their lives. See, I'm all about people trying to live their lives. I don't care what color you are, what race you are, just live your life. I don't care what your ideology is. I don't care what your philosophy is. Just live your life, right? The real reason why there's so much pushback on reparations for so-called black people. Now, I did a broadcast where I talked about why it would be in the best interest of this country and the economy to give so-called black people reparations. It would be in the best interest because black people are going to take that money, so-called black people, the American indigenous people, are going to take that money and they're going to spend it with everybody. They're going to spend it with everybody. They're going to circulate that dollar. Because black people are always bragging about how they're the biggest consumers on the planet and whatnot. And that is true. Black people will spend their money with everybody. Black people, because they don't have a community mindset like the Caucasian Jews, they don't have a community mindset with the Caucasian Jews. They will circulate their money in their neighborhood. And it's going to take a minute before that dollar goes out of the neighborhood. But it's going to be spent in their neighborhood because they have businesses in their neighborhoods that they support. Whereas so-called black people do not, because you're closed out of receiving small business loans. Because I also put it on my page because they talk about black people, why black people shouldn't get no reparations, but everybody who came to this society got reparations in some form, especially white people. Caucasian Europeans got reparations 5 times. They had 5 major times. I put on, 5 major times they got reparations that put Caucasian Americans in the forefront of this society, and they want to lie and try to act like they pulled themselves up by their own bootstraps and they got everything just by working hard. That's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie. Caucasians, when they came over here into America, they had, I'm talking about the 1800s and things like that, they had land given to them. They had land that was taken from our people, the American Indians, the American indigenous people, not African Americans, the American Indians. Land was taken from our people and given to European Caucasians who came over here. And this is where your Indian Removal Act came from. Over 20 million acres of land was taken from our people. Land that we were already living on before Caucasians came here. Yes, we were here before white people. Land that we were already living on. Land that we have been living on for thousands of years in North America. Because they don't like to tell you, they love to lie and tell you that North America, there was nothing here and there was nothing developed. That's a lie. Because again, you don't come to a place where there's nothing. Because how would you know how to build a place up? You would have to see people already doing things here. And that's just what they did. They came here, they saw our people already living on the land, building on the land, having homes, eating, hunting, doing all the stuff that these Caucasians ended up doing by copying from us. Our people were already doing that. They make it seem like, oh, it was no land, nothing was cleared out. It was just trees everywhere and it was woods. That's a lie. That's a lie. Because how would you even begin to start getting this section of the earth, North America? How would you even start to get it ready to be able to be habitable? If there was nothing here, trust me, when Europeans came here and there was truly nothing here, do you know how further off they would be in the development of this country if there was nothing here and they had to start from scratch where there was nothing? You know, they would have to figure out how the soil grows. They would have to figure out how to harvest things. They had to learn that from people who were already doing it, our people. And we did it so well. This is what they put us in slavery for, because if we didn't work the land, if we didn't grow on the land, if we didn't harvest the land, not just pick cotton, if we didn't harvest and grow on the land, because we were pretty much what you would call agriculturalists, because we were, we had no choice but to learn how to farm and grow on the land. We were the first agriculturalists here in North America. And we taught Caucasians how to farm the land. Okay? Not the Mongoloid Indians, because they didn't live on any land. But because we taught these people how to farm the land, we taught them how to survive here in North America. They took advantage of our people. The races here with their governmental setup, which was aimed at displacing the indigenous Americans here, the real Americans. And again, they can't lie about this. Again, if you think I'm making this up, go and look up the 1828 definition of American, Merriam-Webster Dictionary, and that tells you the whole story of what I'm saying. I've been saying that And the hatred is, and the pathological, like I said, hatred is that people are going to always know the truth, or you could find the truth. And again, goes back to reparations. You don't try to repair people who you destroy. They don't. You ask for reparations from people who have purposely set about making sure that so-called, quote-unquote, black people, you know, the real American indigenous people, the real American Indians had nothing. They set about trying to make sure our people had nothing. So why would they give us something now? They made sure that they deprived our people of resources and gave it to Caucasians, you see, so that they could have, and we could be the have-nots. They did that with the Caucasian farmers, where they gave them all kinds of grants and gave them all kinds of things from the I forget what that the agricultural department, and it's been already exposed that they were giving the Caucasians money for farm equipment and things like that, and you know, getting their crops, and they wasn't giving our people nothing. All they was doing was foreclosing and taking our land and giving it to Caucasians. That's all they set up to do, to deprive our people. You see, and then when you speak on it, oh, that's not real. There's no such thing as racism. Yes, it is. And you should always speak on that and call it out and say it for what it is. Don't hide the fact that, you know, the reparation thing has a deeper meaning to them. Again, when you're dealing with people that got the ugly girl syndrome, right, who want to see the pretty girl deprived of things. Again, or I could say it like the nerd and the jock syndrome. If you see the nerdy, displaced guy, and you see the handsome jock, right, who got everything, who hit the genetic jackpot, because our people, for the most part, hit the genetic jackpot. We got beautiful skin, we got beautiful hair. Our babies are beautiful, most beautiful babies on the planet. My daughters get compliments all the time, and anybody that's halfway decent looking so-called black people, you're gonna have beautiful babies. More beautiful than all the other babies on the planet. I'm gonna just be real. You got cute babies in the race. I'm not taking anything with, but we got the most beautiful babies per capita. We got the beautiful babies. They got beautiful hair, full head of hair. My daughters got full heads of hair, beautiful skin, things like that. Just their complexions alone. We've already hit the genetic jackpot. So of course the people who basically crapped out in the genetic department, they don't want to empower us. They crapped out. They threw snake eyes. They got pale skin, you know, which they got to sit and tan, and they get all burnt up and turn orange and shit. And they got dog fur. And when that, they all screwed up. They always sick in the hospital. Again, no disrespect, but it's the truth. The truth can't be disrespectful. The truth can't be wrong to say. Truth is truth. These people are angry at their natural genetic inability. So they even got to sit up here and lie and talking about, yeah, pale skin and blonde hair and blue eyes is beautiful. They don't believe that. They don't believe that at all. They don't, because if they did, the tanning business wouldn't be such a big business. And they look ridiculous because they trying to tan to look like us. They trying to get that copper tone skin. Now, I told you, copper tone, tan and all that. They trying to look like us, man. Hell, Donald Trump, he's looking brown skin. Last time I seen him on damn TV, had a bronze colored tone to his skin. They trying to look like us, man, by calling us niggas and telling about how we black. They trying to look like how we really look as the bronze copper colored people. And we sitting there like, you gotta wake up, man. A lot of pushback on it because you got, again, how is there pushback on reparations for so-called black people, but there's no pushback on the reparations white people got? They got reparations 5 times, from the Indian Removal Act, from the GI Bill, where they got all those homes, from it's a lot of different times they got reparations. The Small Business Association, which put a lot of them in business. People like your Elon Musk and them, they get governmental welfare all the time, man. They give them our tax money that enriches them. Okay? They get rich all the time off of our money, but we can't get a loan for a damn thing. They just give them our money. You see, that's selective. That's what you call selective funding. They selectively give reparations. They're giving reparations to illegals right now. My tax money, your tax money. Why don't you racist Caucasians got a problem with giving money to illegals? Why don't you have a problem with giving money to DACA programs and illegals and Ukrainians and whoever else? Why don't you have a problem with that? people who are not even citizens. So at least black people are citizens, and at least they're gonna, if they got reparations, their reparation money is gonna circulate throughout the society, and it's gonna build up the economy. Like how when they did the Million Man March, that in itself was reparations for white businesses, because all the money that was spent in the Million Man March, all the money that went to bus companies, planes, gas stations along the line for the people that traveled there, hotels that were stayed in, things like that, food that was bought. So money was made in the Million Man March. And that just goes to show you that when our people get money, they circulate it throughout the economy. You see, they boost the economy by circulating it throughout the economy. These other races of people, when they get it, what they trying to do, they trying to send it back to their country. They trying to hoard it for themselves. They're not trying to spend no money with y'all. They're not. When black people said they're the biggest consumers in this country, that was right. We circulate money. They know us as liquid money. You see? And people want liquid money. They want cash on hand. All right? Proof that the so-called black race is a race unto itself. I told you before, and I got to repeat this one more time. Black people are a race unto themselves. Proof of that is we ain't got no friends. We ain't got no allies. You know, you got the people who we thought was down with us. A lot of these Latinos, they're not for our people, man. They'll be the ones, they want to be, a lot of these Latinos, they want to be white. So they're going to side with racist Caucasians against us. You know, the racist Latinos, I'm talking about, they will side with racist Caucasians because they think they white people with brown skin. They think they're white with brown skin. And the racist Caucasians, and I say the racist, but I'm not saying the ones who are not racist, who you all claim you're not racist. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt in this, that, okay, let's say y'all not racist. Let's say you don't have a racist bone in your body. I'm speaking to the racist ones. You get this idea in your head, the racist Latinos, y'all get this idea that you are in your head that you are somehow better than the Moreno, the so-called blacks. But like I said, the racist whites are only using you to displace us. And after they finish using you to try and displace us, you ain't gonna never displace us because we got too many numbers and we're gonna keep on populating. That's just gonna happen. You can make all the abortion clinics, you can send all the Margaret Sangers out there, you could push all the LGBT agenda to try to stop us from mass producing. We're going to still mass produce and outpopulate you over time. That's going to happen. It don't matter how many people you kill, how many people you choke out, and how many people you try to scare into leaving the city. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. You see, you'll exhaust yourself trying to get rid of us before we willing to go any goddamn place, because we was here first. And the first had become the last, and the last had become the first, but it flips over again. We at the last part, and we're going to be the first again, and y'all going to be the last, and you're going to get to taste what it is that you dished out to our people. Judgment is coming for all degenerate, racist people of all skin complexions, because again, like I said, our people, we are a unique people. We look unique. We don't look like nobody here on the planet. That's why I said we are a race unto ourselves. We're not a part of the human race. We are a totally different species. I told y'all, we are the almond race, and we came here before the human race. Like I said, we are a race and a species unto ourselves. Don't nobody look like us on earth. Not even your tribal Africans, who they try to say are our people, which they really not. They relatives, but they're not our people. And they show it every day because they side with the so-called white man. The racist ones. That's the ones, you know, the ones that's over in y'all country who y'all bow down to and soft shoe and Uncle Tom for. Yeah, them racist white people who you sit up here and you bow down for because you feel like you have more of a connection than you do to us. And actually they do, because the African / European / Asian continent is all one landmass, and they all come from that landmass. We are the only people here in America. I'm talking about the indigenous the American Indians, bronze, copper-colored people. We are the only ones who are truly American. The ones who are being called African American, who are not African at all, the real American Indians, we are the only real American indigenous people here. Going back to all our Olmec, Aztec, Inca, and Mayan bloodlines, which came from South and Central America and we were the first people into North America to set up these farms and what they call plantations, and we started the economy going here. We jump-started the economy because we started working the land. And by us working the land, when these Caucasians came here, they saw that the land was plentiful. They saw that the land was beautiful, and they've never seen anything like this. And they seen how our people were living here in America. We were living good in America. We were eating well. You see, like I said, we were healthy people, no diseases or nothing like that. And then we came into contact with the Europeans, and the rest is history. Yeah. Why black politicians don't help black people? Black politicians are in office simply to help Caucasian people. They get this job they don't see. Y'all gotta understand, these people, the so-called black politicians, they don't get into politics to help their people. They don't get into politics for that. They get into politics to benefit themselves. Okay? They get into politics. Black politicians are no different than white politicians. But I will say that white politicians will help white people before, because they know that it is something in helping white people. It's something down the line for them doing for white people, just like the Asians will help Asian politicians will help Asians out. Arab, they'll help all their people out. Jewish politicians will help Jews out and Israel out. But when it comes to so-called black politicians, they're told that in order to be politicians, they can't do nothing for their people. So y'all when y'all got mad at Barack Obama for doing nothing for black people, actually working against black people, I told you, he's no different than a Donald Trump or Joe Biden or all these other presidents that have been here in this country. They work for a corporation. They work for the business, and they have to follow company policy. I told you, America is a corporation, and these people, the presidents, they work for the corporation. They're not here to work for you, especially if you're so-called black. They're here to work against you as the policy dictates. Do not help the indigenous people. Keep them misplaced. We do not want them to have a foothold in America ever again, because they remember a time they got in their history. When they came here, they knew who the people was who had all the land, who had all the resources, knew how to do everything. That was us. And they set about systematically taking it from our hands and putting it in their hands. That's how slavery got started. Slavery really got started because there was Indian wars going on. See, they don't tell you this in school. Indian wars were going on. When the Indian wars was going on, that means black and white. The Indian wars and against the Europeans, that was black and white. The Indians being the so-called black, because you had a lot of American indigenous tribes that are not mentioned amongst the so-called 5 civilized Indian tribes. That was our people, the Indians, fighting against the indigenous people fighting against the Europeans. And for the most part, we was tearing their ass up. The American Indians was tearing their ass up, massacring them and fighting in certain places like the southern regions when they had the Indian Removal Act. A lot of our people didn't want to leave. So what they did was they armed a lot of these Caucasian settlers who were coming in here. And with the help of the army, they took our people hostage and forced our people into slavery. Killed off a lot of men and women, and they took the children into slavery. And those children were raised in slavery, and that was the beginning of your slave populations here. These was scrimmages and fights that was going on where they would try to take our people's land. A lot of our people didn't want to leave the South, and they were trying to force them to go west and go out and leave from the South so that the Europeans could come in and take the land. A lot of them stood up and fought, and that's where the slavery thing, those were prisoners of war. A lot of the slaves were prisoners of war from fighting with the Europeans, from getting their land taken from them. Okay? And that started your slave system. The African slave trade, that happened, and that stopped at 1808. They brought in a few Africans here and there, but they weren't enough to sustain a plantation or a real workforce because they didn't have the ships at that time to bring them in. They didn't start bringing in, have ships to transport people to 1850. By that time, for the most part, 15 years of slavery, that was almost the end of slavery, coming toward the end of slavery. It wasn't until 1850. And they had stopped bringing Africans over here in 1808. Check that out. And the Africans that did make it into America, it was a very small percentage, like maybe 3%. So you got to think, where were the other 90+%, 95, 96 to 97% of so-called black people in America, where they came from? Answer, not off of slave ships. They were already here as the American indigenous people. And because of that, you know, the politicians are sworn to never help the indigenous people. Okay? The black politicians that they elect are just here to make it seem like there's diversity in the society and that black people have representation. But in fact, you do not have any representation. If any of these black politicians start to do anything for so-called black people, they're going to lose their positions very quickly, and they know that. Or they might be killed. They're not to do anything for black people. Why do you think they systematically don't help you? They can't help you. So don't get mad at Barack Obama. Don't get mad at this clown we got here in office. What's this clown's name? The black mayor, Eric Adams. I don't get mad. I got, you know, these are Sambos. They ain't supposed to do nothing for our people. We supposed to do something for our people. They here to just they here for themselves. They here to get a job. They here to get money. They here to live good. And all they care about is themselves. That's it. That's it. That's the reality of it. I'm gonna speak on this thing that took place, the chokehold. Everybody, I'm pretty sure by this time has heard of this situation here in New York, where this guy choked out the Caucasian male, choked out the so-called black male on the train. Right, he walked up behind this Caucasian male by the name of what's his name? I forget what his name is. It'll come to me in a second. But he choked out the so-called black male, right? And he walked up behind a guy who weighed literally like 120 pounds. This coward, Penny, I think his name, Daniel Penny, that's his name. This coward from Long Island, he walked up on a autistic, 125-pound Michael Jackson impersonator who was off his meds or was having a bad day. He started yelling at people on the train. The train that wasn't even really packed like that. But he didn't harm anybody. He didn't hit anybody. He didn't put his hands on anybody. He just was having a mental breakdown. And for that, the police were supposed to be called because you got transit police down there. And they would have restrained him and took him to jail or, you know, did what they had to do, handcuffed him. But this person who saw the opportunity to target a defenseless man who weighed like literally 125 pounds. That's the weight of a woman. All right, that's the weight of a average size woman. And you put your hands around your arm, you threw a chokehold around a man's neck. He wouldn't have did that with a man my size. I guarantee you that. He wouldn't have did that with a man of at least 150 to 200 pounds. He wouldn't have did that. And then you had these cowards holding this man's hand while he was choking this man for 15 minutes. And the mayor of this city and the governor of this city, they basically co-signed this cowardly murderer. And that's what he is, Daniel Perry, who strangled the guy, I forget what his name is. The guy who got strangled, I forget what his name is. If anybody knows his name. What's the guy's name that got strangled? Everybody put it in the chat group. The guy, I forgot his name, who got strangled. But anyway, you know, it sent a message that harm being done to so-called black people in this society is okay. It's okay to do harm to so-called black people, right? There was another incident where this Caucasian female drove her car into some BLM members. Now, I don't care nothing about Black Lives, but I told you, I already know that's an LGBT organization. But for all essential purposes, y'all think it's a black organization. And the fact that this female was allowed to drive her car into BLM protesters and not be arrested, that says something. That says something, and it sends a message. And then there was another story. Neely, the guy's name was Neely. Yeah, Neely. The fact that this guy was able to do that and get away with it. And then you see, like I said, that the chokehold and the way, if you look at how he put the hole around the guy's neck, it's like he put a noose on this man's neck, and the guy that was holding his hand, that's the same thing you do when you hanging somebody. When you lynch somebody, you cut off their oxygen, you put a rope around their neck, you hang them, and somebody will hold a hand so that you don't naturally reach up and try to break the hole. That's what you do when you hang somebody. That's exactly what they did on that train. That was a mock execution. That wasn't meant to be a lynching. That was a lynching. Because it's the same thing. If you slip a rope around somebody's neck and you deprive them of oxygen and you got somebody holding their hand while somebody's pulling the rope, you're lynching the person. So what Daniel Penny did was lynch, I think, Jordan Neely, I think his name was, he lynched him. That was a lynching. And again, the guy that helped him and held his hands while it was done, they all should be locked up. Because trust me, had a so-called black man that did that to a homeless white man who was raising his voice and screaming on the train, and he choked him, he'd be in jail right now. And he'd be getting murder charges. They trying to let this guy Daniel Penny go by giving him the lessest. They trying to give him the least of the charges. They trying to give him second degree manslaughter, not even manslaughter, second degree assault, something like that. Something it really the lowest charge. And he's probably not gonna see no time for that. So that should put all so-called black New Yorkers on alert. That should put you on alert about what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a mayor who is not for you. You're dealing with a governor who is not for you. They are actually against you. Why? Because they're trying to install a permanent white population in your areas. They're trying to create a South Africa and what used to be black communities in Bed-Stuy, in Brownsville, in East New York, in Harlem. They're trying to install a South Africa system here. You can clearly see it. That's why they let this guy go. And then in another story, there was this drunk Caucasian police officer that was charging this so-called black male, and he kept calling him a nigger, calling him nigger this and nigger that, and the black male ended up knocking him out. Just knocked him out, told him, leave me alone. And he kept charging at the guy. He wouldn't even bother the guy, told him, leave me alone. He kept charging him, he knocked the guy out. I think they locked this guy up for knocking out the cop. You see, I got to stop standing around when you defend yourself, because you already know, don't wait around for the police to show up. Don't do that, because they're going to lock you up when you defend yourself. But somebody like a Daniel Penny could go and choke a man to death, and they wouldn't going to arrest him at all. They was going to just let him go. The police supposed to put him in handcuffs, and then the DA is supposed to tell them, decide whether he was supposed to go right to jail immediately. They just let him go. I don't think they let him go from the scene. It wasn't until people started flooding the trains and making a big deal of it and going into it that people now they end up changing the charges. Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, she was like, oh, well, there's consequences to doing these things. And when, in other words, she was basically saying that the guy Neely, he deserved to die for yelling on the train. He deserved to die. You see? And they try to make it like this is a homeless thing. No, this is a black and white issue, as it always is. All right? I touched on my topics. I'm going to do a few bonus ones. And then we're going to wrap it up. Let me see. Why do black people exalt traitors and turncoats as heroes? Why do we exalt traitors and turncoats? You see, there are a lot of traitors and turncoats historically that we are taught to exalt. People who are not good for the image of our people, people who are not good for the evolution of our people, as the bronze people, as the bronze copper-colored people. I refer to our people as the bronze people, the bronze race. I don't say the black people. I don't say black, I say bronze, even though a lot of y'all act like black people. But people like Malcolm X, who was a sellout, Martin Luther King, who was a sellout, all these sellouts that turncoats that you exalt, because Malcolm X sold out the Nation of Islam. He sold out Elijah Muhammad. And people could sit up here and say all this stuff they want. Oh, Elijah Muhammad, he did it because Elijah Muhammad was this, that, and the third. I touched on it on my broadcast, the false allegations about Elijah Muhammad and young women, all that. I touched on all that already. I said that You just got people, you know, because I can't for the life of me ever understand how a person can justify turning on you after you raised that person, after you took care of that person, after you made that person's name a household name. You gave this person a platform, and you tell me they sell you out because they care about you sleeping with young women. They say underage, but it was no underage. They were young women. Young women. Young women, and a man sleeping with young women, an older man, there's no crime in that. And if Elijah Muhammad was committing a crime, like I said, they would have locked him up in jail. They would have locked him up there because they had his phones and everything, wiretapped, the FBI and all them. So if they thought that he was even sleeping with underage girls, they would have had the Chicago Police Department and everybody else down at the messenger's door, at Elijah Muhammad's door. Why that never happened is because he was not sleeping with underage girls. But Malcolm X had no problem in spreading that, just like he had no problem in labeling the Nation of Islam a criminal organization. An organization that was instrumental in cleaning up black people off of drugs, prostitution, all kinds of things. People were cleaned up and brought into a stable environment and they were what's the word they say when you go to jail? They were rehabilitated. Rehabilitated. The Nation of Islam was pretty much a rehabilitation center for people, and clean people, honorable people, or people who were credit to society and credit to their race. So when a person like a Malcolm X comes up and speaks against that, a person who was down for 12 years, and yet you claim that you saw all of this corruption going on in the Nation of Islam and Elijah Muhammad sleeping with young girls. That's all you saying. They afraid. Because I watched some of his old interviews, and he did a lot of interviews where he talked about how they just afraid I'm going to expose them for Elijah Muhammad for sleeping with young underage girls, and the Nation of Islam is a criminal organization. I'm like, okay, but question. If that's so, then why were you a part of it for 12 years? Why didn't you just leave? Why would you continue to be a part of it? Why did they have to kick you out? Why did you have to get kicked out or had a problem? The only way you had a problem is because they told you couldn't say anything against Kennedy. And I talked about this. So if you were so righteous, you should have left and outed them a long time ago. It seemed like you were willing to go along with the so-called quote-unquote corruption as long as you got your slice of the cake, as long as you stayed in your position of power as a spokesman, a high-level spokesman for the Nation of Islam. You were okay with the quote-unquote so-called corruption that was going on. So what does that make you, Malcolm X? And what Martin Luther King, he sat up here and marched your people out into the streets to get beaten and had water hoses and dogs sicked on them, beaten with water sprayed on them and beaten with nightsticks, women and children, women having their breasts bit by dogs. I'm talking about vicious beatings, all to go and have the right to spend your money with a bunch of racist Caucasians. Make that make sense to me how that was any help to our people. It wasn't. In fact, people will say, well, if they didn't do that, we wouldn't have civil rights. That's not true. Civil rights came because it was people after Martin Luther King passed, people in the 60s, they started burning down cities and blowing up stuff and sniping law enforcement officers. People had enough and people started fighting back. They started pushing back. They had enough and they really was turning up in the 60s. Our people, young black, so-called black people, the copper colored people, the indigenous people, and real American Indians started turning up in this country. Places were getting firebombed. Policemen were being attacked and killed. So a lot of stuff was going on because I think Martin Luther King had just gotten killed, and then I think they killed Medgar Evers around that time. So people was getting frustrated, their back was up against the wall. You had people just fighting back and just start rioting and tearing up stuff. That's what got a lot of equal rights and civil rights things passed. Not Martin Luther King. Not Martin Luther King. Don't believe that. That was all staged. But again, my point in saying all this is that our people love to praise and uplift traitors, people who are turncoats, people who will speak disparagingly about our people, but you will uplift these people like a lot of these rappers. A lot of these rappers, they talk about kill a nigga, shoot a nigga, stab a nigga, do this, sell dope to a nigga, black, calling black females, all these out their name, but you exalt these people. You exalt the very people that tear down your image and tear down your communities. Who are all about that, but they don't say nothing about Caucasians, though. They don't rap about doing nothing to Caucasians, racist Caucasians. They don't do that. Just something to think about. But that's it. I'm all conversationed out. Do I got any questions before I close out? Wife of mine? Questions, comments, concerns? Before I close out? Anything? All right. This was a little impromptu. I'm about to close out in the name of Amen, by the power of Amen. Amen we trust, and Amen we think, and Amen we continue forward forever. Subscribe to High and Mighty Talks. We're gonna have one. We got a High and Mighty Thoughts coming soon. Got High and Mighty Thoughts coming. Well, I'm gonna just be doing them audio. I'm gonna touch on one subject and just keep it moving. Do some audio. High and Mighty Thoughts coming soon. All right, along. We're gonna keep High and Mighty Talks going. Subscribe to High and Mighty Talks. Subscribe to the Ethnic American channel, Sister and Robinzetta. Subscribe to MENTELLECT Patreon, my Patreon page, where we get a lot more raw and uncut as usual. But that's it. I'm done. Good night. Be well. Happy Mother's Day.